are now requesting that police do not patrol in pairs, that you only have one officer per car, because it slows things down. It's too easy when there are two policemen together for things to escalate very quickly and mistakes to be made.
You know what? I agree with that. I think that's probably true. Don't you?
Yes, it's something that I've experienced in my life, just with random traffic pullovers and things like that, is they find if there's only one policeman there, he has to call for backup, he has to slow down, he has to go back to his car, he has to do things according to a certain procedure. And even if it's a slightly dangerous situation, it de-escalates things for a while. But if you have two policemen there or more, there's a certain culture of bravado that begins to build up, and things happen much more quickly and mistakes are made. He cites the Amadou Diallo case in New York City, where that unarmed immigrant was shot, 44 times in just a few seconds, and he had no weapon.
Wow.
It's because the cops just reacted too quickly. They were in a bad neighborhood. Anyway, the whole point is that they didn't have the space they needed. They didn't slow down. Things escalated. But we're all in that kind of situation now where things can escalate very quickly. What it leads to is rudeness, people not getting along as well in public spaces. Certainly an example would just be cell phones, where it's appropriate to talk in a certain way. This is a whole big discussion in itself, but it all has to do with time, because the more things that get speeded up, it begins to impinge on older cultural systems and farther back biological systems about the way things were done. And it seems to me, because things are changing so quickly now, that we're all in kind of this really adaptive mode. Is how do we incorporate all of this stuff we do every day in a way that still allows us to have enough rest and enough time to make decisions in a good way? Because again, what the research shows is the more input you have, if you don't have time to process it properly, you don't think as well. And that's why Guy Claxton calls his book How Intelligence Increases When You Think Less. So in other words, rather than have more information, which we have now, sometimes you need less information. Personally, I have rules about my own computer and cell phone use. After certain hours of the night, it all goes off. It all gets turned off.
That's great.
Because you need time for your subconscious, to digest what happened to you during the day. Do you want to evaluate what happened to you during the day? What did you like? What didn't you like? To reassess, to have intent and vision for your next day, right? Well, if you just have all this information and you just go bang into sleep, right? You didn't have time to process it properly. And so that's just my belief about it, at least. So we need to create systems that, this technology is a wonderful thing, but we also need to have time with our family, with our friends, with our lovers.
Yeah.
And that's often best without a lot of information technology around. Actually, I have a room that I don't allow cell phones in the bedroom anymore. Yeah, it's too many, even as an alarm clock, it's too much. It's just too much. It stays out of the bedroom because it's not the right mood. So this all has to do with time. I mean, we can go into it's a long process. It's been happening over 100 years, but the bottom line is there's so much more possible because of this time control that we need to say, look, our bodies need rest, our emotions need space, and our subconscious processes need space too. So we need to have boundaries, healthy boundaries, to where technology is allowed and when we should turn it off. There's so many examples of this. Oh, look at distracted driving, another example.
Absolutely.
How much can you do at once before you can't do things effectively?
Let's talk about this river of intelligence, and then I want to go right into remote viewing and your work at the Institute. What we're talking about is all part of it, but I want to then zero in on that and bring it home to the listeners. You say we can fish from this river of intelligence anytime we want. And we can fish for intuitions, hunches, and gut feelings. And these fish can be very nutritious and healthy if we cook them properly. Now, remote viewing is what for the public? Explain what remote viewing is.
Remote viewing is your own ability to tap into non-local information from things that would physically appear to you to be at a distance, so that the information could not be acquired through your physical senses related to proximity, something being close to you. You're getting information in a way that is not connected to any physical sense that we know about. And so it's happening through a non-local process. It's not happening through a direct signal through your eyes or your ears and your other physical senses. And so the idea with that is to train people. It's not, now here's the thing, Kimmy, it's not like you need to learn how to do this. We all know how to do this. It's how to retrain yourself to listen to quiet signals.
There's another part of this, too, that's really riveting to me, which is that when a remote viewer goes into this place to access non-local material, whatever it is, events, people, data, they can bypass time as we know it, temporal time, meaning they can go back into the past, they can go into the present, or they can go into the future. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. For that to be correct, that means that matter as we know it is stored somewhere in the universe. There is a storage of matter, all spoken words, all events, all experiences, all people, places, and things. Almost like a library. Could we say that?
Isn't that a mind-blowing concept?
Well, I've known about it for quite a while, and I try to explain this to clients.
Listen, if viewers can do this, and they've been doing it very convincingly, to see things in the near-term future, I think near-term because there's so many more possibilities the farther you go out in time, or see things in the past, it suggests that it's happening now somewhere. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, now. And there's no way you could pick up the information if it hasn't happened yet, right? There's experiments we do with this, short-term predictions and things, stock market, for fun, to see if we can do it, predict it the next day. And it works better than chance. All the studies seem to show this, 60 to 80% accurate. But viewers found they could view things even back at SRI in the early days, Stanford Research Institute, before the person even got to the site where they were going to stand and just look around. The viewer back at the lab could already describe where they were going to go. Well, what it seems to suggest is that these things are already happening somewhere. It's just almost hard to comprehend because our conscious minds like to believe, there's a past and a present and a future, but RV suggests that it isn't, if it's true. Well, it's pretty important stuff.
It's an entire revolution as we know it in what time is. It also, to me, bypasses all belief structures about time, totally blows it open. And therefore, the future that people are hooked into and the past that they're suffering about, it's stored already. It's almost like it's already all done. You could go as far as to say this conversation has been had already. This show has been had already. It's already recorded somewhere, and we're interfacing, and what we're understanding is the here and the now with it. The question is then really, who the heck are we? What are we?
Well, that's the thing, Kim. There's the rub.
And what's really going on?
We're choosing. We're choosing every second which path to go down. Because, and listen, all the science magazines have talked about this recently, parallel realities. It's not just an abstract concept anymore. There's different versions of everything happening all at the same time, and you're perceiving a slice of it. So it's a question of which slice do you want to perceive? And I'm not talking in a Pollyannish sense,
Yes, I understand.
Where I know we're all ultimately responsible for the reality create, but you're not to blame for what happens to you either. But it does mean that there are different versions of reality. And you seem to pick up the one that you're resonating at because there are different versions of it. So yes, all these things are already there, but which one are you going to perceive? There's different versions of the earth. All these negative versions we hear, future predictions of doom and gloom and all that.
Yeah, which I don't agree with, by the way. I don't buy it.
Yeah, those are one version of what could happen. And in some parallel reality, they're happening. But that doesn't mean that's the one you and I are going to experience or the listeners of our show.
Right.
Because we're in another version. We can't see this happening, and it's almost impossible to prove that it works this way. But there's certainly a lot of speculation in Scientific American, New Scientist, even Science Magazine, that the way physics suggests the universe works, the most modern physics that we know about, suggests that there's other versions of things. Look at the idea of dark matter and dark energy. This is what physicists try to use to explain why there's more gravity around than there should be at interstellar distances. It suggests that we can't see 96% of what's around us right here, right now. There's other versions there's more stuff around us. You can't see it. You can't even interact with it.
Is this why you mentioned Flatland as an example of how, is it the movie or the book, Flatland?
It's both. It's a movie.
Okay.
There's a movie version out of it. It's really fun. It's an animated, I really loved it. It's an animated short. And
its purpose is what? To show that we don't really know what reality is.
yeah, it's like there is a high